Welcome to the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritschner. This is your daily digest college basketball show that covers everything you need to know about your favorite team. From game previews to recaps to press conferences and breakdowns, we have you covered. Every Monday through Friday with your morning commute, wherever you get your podcast, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Welcome into a special episode of the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritschner. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube that you go down there and you hit the subscribe button and you subscribe wherever you're listening to this in audio form. Today I'm joined at McNicholas High School by the new head boys basketball coach, Trey Scotti. Trey, it's great to talk to you today.
Paul, thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing this. It's an exciting time in the basketball world. So just good to connect with you in general and everything that you're doing with your company, the podcasting. Obviously, we both kind of came up through Xavier at the same time, doing a lot of cool stuff. So it's a little bit full circle and really cool to see everything you're doing.
All right, so I'm going to try and check the boxes here for you. So you went to Indiana, where you were a manager.
Student manager, yep.
Student manager there. Then you went to Xavier, where you were a grad assistant.
That's correct.
Became the video coordinator. You were there for 4 seasons?
Yep, I was there for 4 years in total. So I was a GA under Chris Mack in his last season at Xavier. That was a Big East championship year. Yep. And then the next year, he obviously got the Louisville job. Coach Travis Steele got promoted from within, from associate to head coach. Was fortunate enough to get was fortunate enough to get a full-time job, being video coordinator at that time, and did video, did ops, did a little bit of really everything in my time there, specifically under the Steele staff.
And then you were the head coach at the Skill Factory before finding your way back up here to Cincinnati.
Yep. So just coached a prep school down in Atlanta for 2 years. Had an awesome experience, great learning experience, and then got married, moved back up here about 2 years ago now, and I've been figuring it out ever since, but happy to be back. So
Trey, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you today, and the reason we're sitting here this afternoon, is because the entire landscape of high school recruiting into college basketball has changed in the last 3 or 4 years. And we're going to start this conversation by talking about your experience getting hired here at McNick and what you want to do as the head coach of this program. But the back half of this show, the back 2/3 of this show, are going to be about how the landscape of high school recruiting has changed and really how it affects your job here as a high school coach. And where I want to start is that you're not only the head coach here at McNick, you're also a part of Ohio Champion, which is an AAU program. So explain to the people watching who may not know the program what that is and what your role is with them.
Yeah, so Ohio Champion basketball was founded by Tyler Smith in 2016. I actually knew about him because some of our Xavier guys would go work with him a little bit in the off season back during my Xavier days. So knew of him from afar, didn't know him personally. When I moved back to Cincinnati, I wanted to get into basketball training. So I wasn't really calling him to partner up. I was just more calling to, hey, let's talk ball. What did you do that went well? What would you change? And we ended up really finding a good match from a professional standpoint, rebooted his company. And so we started doing the training really as soon as I moved back almost 2 years ago now. And then the competitor in me and the coaching part of me, I love to train. But I love coaching teams as well. There's nothing better than team. And so I was like, let's start an AAU program for a couple of reasons. One is the competitive drive, but also I think the landscape on the AAU side needed a lot of changing. And so just as I really got time when I stopped coaching in Atlanta, I had more quiet time than I've ever had before, just to really sit back, think, and observe and really take things slow. My observation was, as I was training some of these kids, is like, you may take a 14-year-old. Let's take a Trey Scotti of the world, right? Like, goal in high school is to be a very good varsity player, maybe play in any level of college. Like, I could have been a low-end Division III level guy. Well, kids that were maybe my skill level, 14, 15 years old, they're going out of state 5, 6, 7 times, playing in 8 or 9 tournaments, and I would notice some of these kids would come back and their habits were worse. So we'd be training them for a while. They'd go play a lot. They'd come back and they were in worse shape. Just their tendencies were worse. And as I started to listen to different podcasts and different people talking about the game, like Doc Rivers mentioned specifically on the Bill Simmons podcast, I'd still never forget listening to this episode. He talked about in Europe, they did a study. Those kids are playing half as many games in the off season as kids in the United States, and they're training twice as much. And we felt like with our company and what we do from a training standpoint, and then maybe some of my coaching experience, we could fill the gap. And with that gap, most of our teams play about 6 tournaments, maybe, which is a little bit less than most, but they also train with us as part of the program, specifically at the younger ages. And so that's how we came about to starting the AAU program. We've got teams from 6th grade through high school that vary in skill level. We've got a top, 17 U team that we've got a couple guys at Division I offers. We've got guys getting recruited at the Division II, Division III level, NAIA, junior college, and then all the way down to 6th graders are trying to make their 7th grade team next year in middle school. So that's really how all that came about. And it's been a ton of fun. It's been an awesome passion project for myself, but everybody in our company from A to Z. And we've just got a lot of really good people involved right now. And so it's year 1. It's nowhere near where we want it to be. We got a lot of improvements to go. I'm sure a lot of people in our program will be like, hey, you got to be better at this and better at that. But if you're not getting better, then, if you're not looking yourself in the mirror, then you're not heading in the right direction. So awesome start to year 1 with 10 teams and excited to keep that going.
This is a pretty, I would say, fertile recruiting ground, right, in the Southwest Ohio area. A lot of really talented high school programs around here. So what is that like for you to be able to acquire some of that talent and to be able to coach it through an AAU lens?
Well, it's really unique. Like, really, I think this is a football city, first and foremost, right? Like, when I was in Atlanta, I felt like that was a little bit more of a basketball city, just in terms of more people focused and specialized training in basketball. And in Atlanta, there's a basketball trainer on every corner. In Cincinnati, I felt like there was a gap and there wasn't as much of that. And Cincinnati's unique. Tyler, my training partner, he talks about this all the time. We're looking for kids with that Ohio football toughness, and we want to use that as a positive for all the kids we're trying to find and coach. And then we're trying to implement the skill that you see like in the toughness and the culture that Indiana basketball had in the Bob Knight days. And so Ohio Champion basketball was, hey, yeah, we want to win championships. We want to compete to win, but being a champion every day in your workouts with your work ethic, your habits, being coachable. And we actually picked like the Indiana Crimson as our color as well, and I say we, Tyler picked this way before he and I ever knew each other, before he even knew that I went to Indiana or anything of that nature. So it really, really fit well, and I think there's obviously a lot of talent. There's a lot of great coaching here. I think a lot of the most athletic kids in this area have maybe gone more towards football or played both sports, and so no part of our mission is to take kids away from football or anything of that, but let's use that football toughness to our advantage and maybe implement more skill training that's going on here in the past. And that's not to say there's not good coaches. There obviously are. There's great trainers in Cincinnati as well. Just maybe here there was more of a gap, and maybe it's a little bit harder for a parent or a player in Cincinnati to find a trainer than my time in Atlanta. And so I think, obviously, you're thinking of this from a business standpoint as well. When you own a business, right? That's really my 9 to 5, if you want to look at it that way, and filling that gap for people and hopefully creating an opportunity to get in the gym when otherwise they wouldn't have that.
So you talk about Indiana. I know that's near and dear to your heart because that's where you went. That's where you were a manager. Go back to your time at Indiana, and for maybe people that are listening to this that are in college right now, right? Maybe there are some managers listening to this that want to be sitting where you're sitting. Maybe there are people that are, kind of trying to find their way, but they were a manager at one point in their career. I'm just curious what what you feel like now at this point, being a AAU coach, being a high school coach, how valuable it was to learn as a manager in your time as an undergrad.
Well, you could put a price value on something like that. I mean, we were volunteers. I think we got a little bit of a scholarship doing that at that time. A lot of the managers I worked with are way more successful than I was. We got guys who are G League head coaches, NBA assistant coaches, Division I assistant coaches. Other guys are coaching in high school at a high level. So there's a lot of guys probably to look to as a better way to get to the highest levels than even me. But my advice is it's great because you'll find out if you really love it. And when you're a manager, right, you stay over Christmas break. You get to go home for about 48 hours. You don't go home for Thanksgiving break. And really what you learn more than about a certain kind of dribble move or maybe a certain strategy or a tactic, you learn about the business of college basketball, being a manager. And so, a lot of people would say they want to work in athletics or college sports. I think it's how many people are willing to give up what it takes to be in the business? Are you willing to be married and move your kids at the drop of a dime because your staff just got a better job or you were fired or something of that nature? Are you willing to give up weekends? Are you willing to give up those breaks that maybe you've had with your family? And college basketball is in a unique space. When I was working in it, I feel like when you got through the NCAA tournament, you would kind of take a breath. And maybe some guys are graduating, some guys are having a surgery that was nagging throughout the season. They take a step back. Well, now if you talk to guys in college basketball, the season ends, and now it's the busiest time of the year, and so it's even more intense than even when I was in it, 5 years ago, whatsoever. So I think if you are interested in working in college basketball, it does start with who you know, and so being a manager is a great route for somebody like me who was not an outstanding player, and you can just learn about, is this something I really want to put my time into? And I don't look at Indiana, and I think it was moving so fast, like there was so much great coaching going on, but you're just so focused on your job as a manager and what the film is for that day and making sure practice, the court is taped appropriately, and we'd be on the scout team. You're so worried about that. You really don't have time to soak in all the basketball. I wish I could take a video camera, go back and take more notes on the basketball part. Yeah. But there's so many moving pieces to the business and understanding how the travel works, how the camps work, what all the managers do from top to bottom. That would be my biggest advice for anybody looking to get into it. And I think when you're younger and you're maybe single and you don't have kids, you can sacrifice those things more easily, maybe in income, because I think it's a lot harder, as you start to get married, have kids. Oh, I think I want to work in college basketball. You're most likely going to start at a low-paying position where you're giving up a lot. And obviously, the older you get and have more life commitments, it's harder to take a risk like that.
Yeah. So then you go from Indiana, you get hired as a grad assistant at Xavier. That role evolves into being the video coordinator, and that's a role that I think a lot of people hear about, but maybe don't know exactly what's required of being the video coordinator. What did you do day in and day out?
Yeah, video is just a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Right? Probably the core of being a video coordinator. Okay, let's say you're playing Providence. You're helping the coaches put together the edit that they're going to show the teams. Coach Travis Steele, he was a video coordinator, so he would make an edit for the team. I would barely have to touch that. So I was very fortunate when he would do a lot of stuff. He would make my life easy. Some coaches maybe that didn't have that background, you would have to do the entire thing for them. Some coaches, you might have to help edit a little bit. Some coaches, they may want help on your input. They may have back-to-back scouts or something of that nature. And so not that I was up in front of the team giving a game plan. I don't want to make it seem that way. But there were some coaches at times where I might pitch in a little bit and help here and there. It's recruiting film. Watching, Coach Steele was very methodical in his evaluation. And so there'd be some guys that would be like, okay, I'm not sure if we want to offer this guy. I might go cut up 20 games of a particular player. You're cutting out the dead time. You're statting it. He's getting to watch that. And then recruiting presentations, guys could come in and just show players your current style of play. So that was the meat and potatoes of the video side. I ran the camps. I hired the managers. I kind of oversaw the GAs and worked with them. And I say oversaw, we worked together. It's not like I was like a boss or something like that. I helped the players manage their checks that they would get, cost of attendance. They, before NIL, they would get a little bit of money at every school, right? That just helps cover, books, calculators, things that they need for school. So helping those players manage those checks, set up bank accounts. A lot of those players never had a bank account before they show up on campus. It's making sure the players are paying for their apartments appropriately. It's all those little thankless jobs, and that's not a complaint. That's what it takes, right, to get into the business at college basketball. You got to be patient. You got to earn your stripes. As you're learning the basketball side of things, you're not just sitting there every day with a notepad. Okay, this is how I attack a 2-3 zone. That's the fun piece of it. It's everything you've got to do to keep that program going in the right direction. You never know what each day brings. It's a lot of work. You're on call 24/7, but really got to learn a lot at Xavier. It started to slow down the business side for me and understanding how it worked. And while I still was able to do my job, I felt like I really got to slow down the basketball piece, learn a lot, take a lot more notes in practice, our game plans, our workouts. It's just the Xavier way. There's a lot of great coaches that have been at Xavier. There's a lot of great organization. They look at Mario and Mercurio. There's things that they would do, we would do to stat practice. We'll do that here at McNick. I did that at prep school. There's ways to grade how your team's doing defensively afterwards. Xavier had a lot of great processes in place I think they're ahead of the curve from a lot of the things on the technology standpoint. So, we could do a podcast on each of these questions in their own right. So I'm trying not to ramble too long.
No, it's great. I mean, that's why we're here.
But when you're there all day, every day, working crazy hours, crazy weeks, you're really learning everything A to Z. It's just about how much time you really want to put into it. In the basketball outside, it's like, hey, if I don't make sure that camps are run, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to lose my job, right? The basketball piece is secondary when you're in a spot like that. So it's how much extra time are you going to put into watching a practice afterwards, sending your note to the coach, hey, I think this guy's struggling with this, or maybe we could try this drill to sharpen up this tactic, whatever that might be. That's not really what you're there for. So you've got to do your job first and foremost. And then secondarily, can you show that you add some value on the basketball side? Because most ops guys and video guys want to get into coaching. Some guys want to stay on that side and they just become elite in that field. Most guys are doing it because there's another stepping stone they want to get to. So how do you do your job well while also prove you could be valuable in the coaching sphere going forward?
It's just fascinating sitting here and having conversations like this, because when you're around programs, when you see it every day, you don't really think about it, right? Like, I see the job that you do at Xavier, and I talk to guys that are around programs, whatever it might be, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, they have to do that because that's the box you have to check to keep the program moving day in and day out. But when you just go to the team's website and you see your name with your title next to it, there's a lot of stuff that goes underneath that you just talked about for the last 5 minutes that people don't realize, that casual fans watching this have no idea that a video coordinator might be the one responsible for making sure guys go to class or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I know GAs, it's a mixed bag depending on what the program is and where your responsibilities are, but just that it's all hands on deck to make sure guys are doing what they need to be doing.
And those rules have changed since, and for the better since I've left. It used to just be you had 3 coaches who could be on the road recruiting, and those 3 coaches, in addition to your head coach, were the only coaches that could coach on the floor legally. When COVID happened, they wanted less managers around because maybe a manager is being a college student, they might be, more likely to get COVID. So there was a waiver to where you could take 2 more guys from the court, 2 more guys that were not court positions go back on the court. So COVID was one of the best things that happened because I got to go from just all office work to being back on the court, being scout team again, working players out. Well, since then, the NCAA has taken a step back. Well, wait a minute. If these are our future coaches in the sport, shouldn't we be giving them better training into the game? And now I don't remember exactly what the recruiting rules are, but you can have more than 3 assistant coaches go on the road. I think it's maybe like 4 at one time. There might be 5 on staff, and you can rotate through. And so I think that's healthier for the game because you're getting younger guys getting their feet wet to where they're not just going from scheduling a camp and hiring the managers to the next year running a scouting report, recruiting players, working guys out. It makes a little bit more sense than it did in the past, which is healthy for the game.
Okay, so we're sitting here at McNich, and I got to say, I have not been in this gym before I walked in, and this is beautiful. This isn't even your main gym. This is the Aux gym.
Yep, practice gym.
But this is a beautiful facility here, and I just want to ask you right now how excited you are to be here as the head coach of this program and where you're hoping to take it.
Oh, I am so excited. I'm so excited, and they asked me in my interview, one of the first questions, why do you want to be at McNich? Why do you want to do this? And I remember telling them, first off, there's an administration here that wants to win, and they want to help young men grow and develop as players and as people and with God and the Catholic faith. So there's a lot about this job that was super, super intriguing. You look at a building like this, not all high schools have this.
No, this is fantastic.
Yeah, in addition to your main gym, right, we have a full-time strength coach. He was actually an intern at Xavier when I was there for all the strength and conditioning programs. So having some familiarity with him, the work he does, but having a guy like that for the players, when I was in high school, most coaches were just, all right, guys, bench 3 times 10, do what you can do, right? And so to have a strength coach, he's probably the most important person in the athletic department, just because he touches everybody in every sport, and that's an area where I don't have the expertise. So to be at a place like this in the GCL co-ed is an unbelievable opportunity. For me personally, there's just nothing like team. There's nothing like every single day. A lot of people can't wait to watch your team in December, can't wait for the games. It's like, I can't wait for June. At end of May, early June, we get a X amount of practice days, X amount of days to go and play in different shootouts. We'll play in the Xavier shootout. We'll play in the Miami, Ohio shootout. We'll play in the live period in Kentucky. And then beyond that, we have we have basically unlimited workouts in the summer for optional things in small groups. And so I'm just excited to spend a lot of time with our staff. We've got a staff that is young and hungry across the board, wants to be in the gym. I want gym rats here. Very fortunate. Can't just be the head coach. It's got to be everybody in the program rowing in the same direction. So to have the strength coach that we have, to have the staff of on-court coaches that we have, to have the facilities and gym time that we have, like, I just cannot wait to really kind of get through the end of this school year, roll our sleeves up, and get to work every single day. And that's what you miss the most. Like the year and a half or so without a team, just all the little moments of being a part of a team and the team meals and all the team bonding. The games are awesome. Those are really, really awesome if you win, and they really, really suck if you lose, and those highs and lows you miss as well. But just the day-to-day grind and watching film and the process, I love basketball. So just to be somewhere where every single day I can put my focus into one team. And AAU, right, we've had 5 practices, so far for 3.5 terms. So that's awesome. And in a different way, you're helping those guys get exposure. You're calling college coaches, making sure guys are watching them. Your film sessions are really important. But at the end of the day, with all those guys, I don't have the power to implement a strength and conditioning program, diet and nutrition, making sure those guys are taking care of that, making sure they're behaving in class. It's just a little bit different. And you get to be around the same team every single day, working for a common goal. So that part's got me more excited than anything right now.
A Fifth Third Better means we give 166.7%.
Who's a good boy, Parson?
I am good boy.
That's right. And why?
Because I bank a Fifth Third Better.
Wait, what?
5/3 equals 166.7%, so they put 166.7% into everything they do.
Okay. What is happening?
I'll tell you what's happening. Free checking, no hidden fees, and identity theft protection. Now, let's get rid of Cat, please.
What?
This is banking a Fifth Third Better.
Okay, so I had a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about today from a big, macro perspective. One was being here at McNick, and the other was the landscape of college basketball, because this is a show that, every day talks about college basketball during the season, and especially here in the Cincinnati area. But from your perspective now, Trey, as we move into this kind of recruiting portion of the show, you've been around college programs, you've been around AAU programs, you're the head coach of a high school program, you've seen it from all angles. And in the last 4 or 5 years, college basketball has completely changed with NIL, with the transfer portal, with the way that players are brought to teams, with everything that goes about building a roster at a Division I or Division II, Division III, NAIA, whatever it might be. But at the Division I level, specifically with the turnover and everything that's happened with this sport, I'll give you a chance here to start this with how you've seen it change from your perspective at the AAU level and at the high school level. What are some of the biggest things that you've seen change?
Well, it's going a lot slower for these high school kids. That's the first thing. Is they've literally this year they've moved back the live period. So live period, there's 2 high school periods now where college coaches can go watch teams play with their high school in June. There's 3 AAU periods. I believe it used to be like April, May, July. Well, now it's 1 in late May, which is this upcoming weekend, and then there's 2 in July. With the transfer portal and all those visits, it is just quite literally pushed back when coaches are starting to think about high school kids and when they are taking the time to watch them, right? And so if you're a high school player or parent, hearing that doesn't always make you feel good, right? Those people are getting a little antsy, especially this time of year as we're getting into the live period. But, in the non-live periods, Division IIs can go watch. The live period just revolves around Division I. We've got some guys in AAU I think will be Division II. We went to a tournament probably 2.5 weeks ago now, and I texted 6 different Division IIs. 5 of the 6 said, we're not going to be watching this weekend. We're having transfer visits. 1 of those 6 went out. And so then the next weekend, we played in Fort Wayne, Indiana. There's quite a few more Division II schools out there. And so I know you asked about Division I specifically, but I think that across the board, it goes to Division I as well. And so I'm not sure that's always a negative thing. Back when I was in high school, I remember kids, I'm from Illinois, there'd be kids that were freshmen in high school committing to schools. I think the more time coaches have to evaluate, the better. There's certain rules that, you cannot start calling kids until the summer before their junior year I believe it is now. And so I think what that's done, one, is it's allowed coaches to focus more on their current team. That's a good thing, right? Spend more time with your current players from a development standpoint, from a human being standpoint, academic standpoint. The fact that you're not having to worry as much about 8th graders and freshmen, certainly, coaches are aware of some of those kids coming up. I think that's a good thing for the game. I think also more time to evaluate them as players. Hey, who's having a great senior year versus maybe a great junior? Who's growing a little bit? Who's maturing in certain ways? Who's kind of on an upward trajectory? Those are the type of players coaches love. Not a guy who is ranked top 5 in the state as a freshman, and the next year they're top 10. They keep falling. You're looking for that guy that's kind of coming out of nowhere. It's resulted in more time to watch guys like that. So the timeline is really the biggest impact on the high school kids. And then I think kids are just, if you were a mid-major player, you're probably a low-major player. Now, if you're a low-major player, you're probably a high D2. If you were a high D2, you're probably a low D2. And the reason for that is the transfer portal, right? And so that's why these coaches aren't worrying about going to all these spring AAU tournaments. They're looking for a 21, 22-year-old. They're like, hey, I need a starter. I don't need a high school kid next year. I need somebody that can come in and start and impact and be an all-league guy at the 4 position or something of that nature. So I'm not sure that's all negative. I think it's just requiring more patience. It's obviously rewarding guys that go to a lower level. I think marketing for players is important, but there's a great message that a trainer shared online. It's like, would you rather your marketing be better and you're not as good of a player and you get there and then you go down, or you didn't spend as much time on your marketing? Let's say you're a Division II level talent. You actually end up Division III. Well, if you go to Division III, kill it, have that resume, you average 17, 7, and 5. There's no better resume for a guy transferring up than something like that. So while it's slowing it down and making it harder to end up where you want to out of high school, it's also rewarding guys that are continuing to get better, continuing to provide stats at maybe lower levels. And, there's obviously a lot of unintended consequences with all the changes, especially all at one time. And I think a lot of the negatives ones are being highlighted, but there's also a lot of positive ones as well.
So when you talk about looking at a lot of these changes in the timelines, and I think it was always interesting on the Sean Miller podcast, Sean would talk about how, and you mentioned this earlier, Trey, about the calendar, right? And how it used to be the fall, and the late summer, the fall, you'd go to the Peach Jam, you'd have all these events, the shoe brands, and the major circuits, and everything that you would do over the summer into the late fall, the fall signing period, and then you'd go right into the season, right? And now it's the Final Four happens, and then boom, your next 31 days, next 30 days are just transfer, and the high school scene gets pushed to the side. The way that you're able to navigate that now as a high school, advocating for your players, how do you kind of thread that needle?
Well, I just talk to the players and the parents about what they can control. And that's why I talk about maybe if your marketing is not as good as it could be right away, if you just keep getting better, those problems are going to take care of themselves in the long haul. So is my job to post highlights on Twitter and post when a guy gets an offer and call college coaches about players? Absolutely. And that's something that I do. But with the players, I try not to get them to focus on that stuff too much. It's like, I'll ask, well, what are you doing this week? Are you getting in the weight room? Are you getting in the gym, getting extra shots up? Like, are you going to be able to make practice? If you can't make practice, what can we do to watch film to make sure you're catching up on what we're going to do? And I think if you just stay focused on your process, those things will take care of themselves at the end of the day. Like we had a guard from Covington Catholic, got Division I offer last week from a college coach that we just sent the film and said, watch and see what you think. Well, he had a great game against a high-level opponent, and it kind of took care of itself. And so I think the more you think about it and freak out, you're going to start to put more and more pressure on yourself. And we started off the whole year with our very first parent Zoom of explaining patience to these parents, given the new way of things. And my biggest focus on day one is let's get in the weight room. Okay, like I talked about at the beginning, we're maybe not playing in as many tournaments. So, okay, if we're not playing as many tournaments, what could we be doing with that time? Get stronger, right? A lot of these kids struggle with strength and conditioning. Maybe they don't have the right coaches. And then more than that, playing all those games, it's hard to keep on weight. And so across the board, I just think if those kids are controlling what they can control, and then when they go out and we do have to play big games on a circuit. Like we play on the Under Armour Rise. There'll be a bunch of Division I coaches. No question, you got to play the best when those opportunities come to end up where you want to go out of high school specifically. But if you're not process-based, I think that's going to catch up with you and bite you. And so that's my message to the kids is just keep getting better and the rest will take care of itself. I don't know when. I don't think anybody can promise that the offer is going to happen this weekend, in June with your high school team, July. It may not happen until you go to a lower level than you want and work your way up. But I just think if you're transparent with the kids about what they need to improve on, that's really all you can do from my position.
Have you seen more disappointment from high school athletes where, you mentioned maybe a high major guy becomes a mid-major guy, a mid-major guy becomes a low major guy, whatever it might be? Like, do you see frustration on the faces of these kids, or are they handling it because they don't know any different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they came up and then this is all they know. So how has it been from their perspective?
I do think that the word is out that the timelines have slowed down. That's obviously something I've really tried to message just to encourage patience. But I do think the basketball community as a whole, if you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you're listening to games, I do think it's been well documented that high school kids are not in as good a shape out of high school as they used to be. So while there's some uneasiness, I do think there's a bit of understanding across the board. I think for parents, the biggest thing is comparison. And when you start to compare, well, this kid got this offer and this kid from this program got this and my kid, I think that's the biggest thing parents need to lock in on is just don't worry about what other kids are doing, worry about what your kid is doing, and it'll end up working itself in the long haul. It's no different than you and I. I can't worry about what a different coach is doing down the road and how his path has gone. And he won this conference last year and he had this job by the time he was 28, or he had this job by the time he was 45. I mean, you look at your career, I'm sure you wanted to be, hey, I want to be doing this in college basketball, and it doesn't always go the way you want it to go. I'm sure you've done so many different things. You would never predicted that you and I would be sitting in here today, nor would I. But if I can do the best job I can do this weekend with our Under Armour Rise kids, well, that starts tonight with the film session. I got to have the best film session I can have, and then we got to have a good shoot around Friday, and then we got to have, we got to play well Friday. Then we got to wake up and do it again and play well on Saturday. And then with McNick, we got to have good lifts. We got to have good workouts. We got to be playing in June the most effectively that we can. I got to meet with those players and get to know them as people. So I just think being process-based is the way you got to be in any industry, no different than basketball, and that's what makes not just basketball, but sports so special is you start to learn these life lessons that, you and I'm sure, are learning ourselves today.
I know you have a really solid network of college coaches, people, trainers, coaches, assistant coaches, whoever it might be that you've connected with through all your years being around the sport. And I read articles all the time of coaches that were quoted anonymously saying, I'm so frustrated by this, or they go to a tournament or they don't get a break after the season's over, and you'll read an article and it'll be 6 different Division I coaches that are anonymously saying, I just hate the way that it's set up right now. I get no breaks. It used to be I could take a breath and then get back into it. Because the other thing too, Trey, I mean, this, that you go through the transfer portal and you have a few weeks in May, but players are going to start reporting it. Some players have already started reporting. I mean, if you look at Xavier's roster, some of those players, I'm sure, are starting to report to Xavier as the first week of June approaches when you can start your summer programs. What are some of the frustrations you hear? And you don't have to put anybody on blast, but I'm just curious, maybe from a general perspective, right? What are some of the things that you hear that you think to yourself, I wish we could maybe change this from the college level of the calendar or how things are run right now? Well,
personally, I think there's got to be more structure around how many times you can transfer. And sure, you and I could leave jobs every year if we really wanted to. But I think, the entitlement that creates of me, I all the time. And do players deserve to be paid? Absolutely. And I'm glad that we're making headway. But I think the running from your problems immediately, that's setting bad precedents for people as they get older. And what are these people going to do when their job doesn't go exactly as they want right away? Are you going to continue to run? I think sometimes sticking, and obviously there's situations where guys should transfer and should be able to transfer because a coach sold them on A and they get there and it's B and C. And that definitely happens. And so, I think rewarding those smaller colleges that maybe do well, or maybe just another high major, buyouts and contracts. Okay, this coach made a good evaluation. They did a good job developing this player. What reward do they get from that standpoint? And then I just think, people lose sight of, if I've been to 3 schools in 4 years, 4 schools in 5, 4 years, some of these kids, 5 schools in 5 years, and even some crazier circumstances, right? With waivers, where do those guys really go? for their network? What's their alumni base when they do need to find a real job? Where do they go to watch a game where they really do feel at home? And I don't think everybody always knows it in the moment, but I think you look back at your life and you want to look back at somewhere and know that, hey, I'm proud I stuck that out. This year didn't go exactly my way. I fought through it. I figured it out. You want to go somewhere that's your home turf.
Yep.
Like you look at Drew Schmidt or AD, the passion he has for this place. He grew up going to McNick games. He was an athlete here. He's worked here, right? Like he bleeds green. Why? Because of the time that he's put into the place. I think that's what makes sports. You look at what Tim Duncan did with the Spurs and how long he stayed with Kobe, with the Lakers. Like those are the special relationships between players and their communities. And so I'm not smart enough to come up with all what those rules should be. But I think you would like to see a little bit more continuity because the relationships are what really make the sport special at the end of the day. But then also the life lessons is I don't think college athletics wants all these people to come through the NCAA. And a lot of them are going to make a lot of money. How many of them are going to live the rest of their life on that money? Very, very few. And so I don't think those people want to look back and be like, all the entitlement that went around with just jumping from your problems. Every situation's obviously different. I don't think there's one rule that's just going to solve all the problems. But if I were, and I think it will go that way in time, but if I were on a committee, that's what I would be looking towards. It's just somewhat more continuity, whether it's the one-time transfer, buyouts, anything of that nature.
Do you hear from former players that say they wish they wouldn't have transferred multiple times?
I haven't heard from a ton of players. I have heard from players that wish they could have transferred, to be honest, right? Or had NIL. It's like, JP McCura, when I was at GA, he was my roommate. And we talk about like what kind of money would he have been making, how marketable would he have been. Yeah. So you look at that, absolutely. Like he should have been able to make money for the revenue that he was bringing to Xavier at that time. I can't sit there and say I've talked to a lot of players that have transferred a bunch, and I'm not sure that people know it in the moment. I think it's more over time. You look back after 20 years of reflection, and maybe not that I didn't leave the school, maybe just, hey, I think we're all proud of ourselves and we hold ourselves to a high standard of accountability, and anything that we could do to maybe drive it a little bit back more that way would be valuable. Yeah,
I mean, if you think back to just some examples, even at Xavier, you look at a guy like James Farr, right, who very clearly played a different role as an upperclassman than he did as an underclassman, where he was shooting a lot of threes, he was playing more out on the perimeter, and then by the time he was an upperclassman as a senior on one of the best teams in the country, he was one of the best rebounders in the Big East Conference. He wasn't shooting as many threes. If he doesn't stick that out, right, if he plays his freshman year and says, I'm playing this role, but I'm not developing the right way, and I just want to go play somewhere else, and he goes to a lower level school, or maybe he goes to another high major, still doesn't get those minutes, you don't see that same continuity in a program under the same coach. And I know we're sitting here saying that we hope that a player stays at one place because part of us, like you said,
we're college basketball peers. We grew up fans.
Exactly.
Right? So.
We enjoy watching the sport. We enjoy becoming attached to teams and identities and what a program, is built around. But at the same time, there's definitely an element for these players where I think you would hear players now that might get through 2 transfers and say, I wonder what would have happened if I had stuck it out at my first school or at the second school. And by the time they've transferred the 3rd or 4th time, they're going, well, now you have to hit a home run and hope it works out.
Yeah. And I think the people more upset speak louder, but a lot of people just talk about, not only are they miserable as coaching staffs, but the players are miserable. Maybe not even understanding why they are, but it's become so transactional and so much entitlement involved and becomes so business-like. And, I know when I was 18 to 22, I'm glad I didn't have cameras and all this money in my face because, who knows how I would have handled that. And while they maybe deserve a lot of that money and attention, a lot of those guys aren't ready for that spotlight and what that entails. And you saw a guy like Coleman Hawkins, went from Illinois to Kansas State. It was documented that he was one of the highest NIL players in the country, and he's breaking down crying at the end of the year on camera. And obviously, right, like you don't want him to not get the money he deserves, but those guys are going through an awful lot. And so how can we find a way to give those guys, their revenue share that they deserve, while also still instilling things that are going to help them throughout their career. Because, I mean, in the NBA, you can't just leave year to year. Those guys sign contracts and they had to adhere to that. And
nowhere in the world can you leave, year to year at a sports level, right? I mean,
right. And when you talk about people complaining, and then that starts to bleed down to AAU, and you got guys going from weekend to weekend. And I think the thing with our AAU program we're most proud of is we haven't had one player on our 10 teams leave and go to another team yet. And I think that's just, that's not to say it couldn't happen, but our goal is for that not to happen. I think when you're just honest with people, this is what we're trying to accomplish, honest with people about their roles, honest about what you want them to get better at. I think people, there's so much of, I want to get you, so I'm going to tell you what you want to hear, and you get there and it's something else. That's what we're trying to do, is provide on that side of things a different experience. And I think the more of that goes on, coaches are in a tough spot because, okay, if you're going to be completely honest with the player at the college level about what that 1 year role is going to be, it's going to be, it's going to be tough to get players. And I think that's why you see guys like the Matt Painters and the continuity they have. That's why they're so elite, is they've set a standard for, from the outside looking in, looking and being honest with players, telling them what their development process will look like, getting them to buy into sticking it out like a James Farr situation. So coaches like that, I love just listening to what they had to say in the press conferences and in the interviews and things of that nature, because that's just, again, as a basketball purist, that's why I love this high school level, right? I mean, that's not to say a player could never transfer, but I don't think you anticipate, a full roster in and out every year and seeing those guys grow over time. I think that's why I, fell in love with the game of basketball, and just hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more of that as it's going to continue to change.
So what's your messaging to your high school athletes or your AAU athletes on what to be prepared for when you get to a college situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's not one general message. I think you're just every day you're finding little ways to message to those guys what you want them to hear. And so with this weekend being the first weekend of the live period, I have a presentation I show players of different coaches talking about things they've seen. So I've got a video of Jay Wright when he saw Josh Hart. He went to a high school game. Yeah. He fouled out in 5 minutes, but he was playing so hard. He's like, that's a guy I got to have. So to show the guys, listen, having 28 and 7, that might help you get an offer. What else might help you get an offer is playing as hard as you possibly can, possession to possession. There's a story, Brandon Dawson, who played at Michigan State. Tom Izzo went to watch him. He had a foul out situation. Izzo offered because he was cheering the loudest on the bench, even though he had fouled out and was in foul trouble the whole game. He's like, that's a guy I want on my team and part of my culture. And so I don't think it's always you talking. Find another coach to say something. Show them a video. I'm always texting kids reels on Instagram. Like, there's a lot of valuable reels. Well, if kids are on their phone, maybe if we're sending them reels of something that's relevant to what they need to. Players don't want to listen to coaches give sermons every single day. So I think finding the right times to speak, and, hey, listen, you don't want to sit there. When I was at Xavier, when I was at Indiana, players don't really care. Those stories will work once in a while, right? But you don't want to use that every single day and every single film session. So I think just coaching as a whole, getting your messaging and across that in a way that kids want to hear it. It's not one thing. It's just the sum of the whole. And like for McNick, we're going to watch the quarterback on Netflix together as a team. And the first season was awesome. You got Mahomes. He goes to his practices, then he goes and he's a dad, and then he's a husband, and then he goes to his throwing coach, and then he goes to his personal trainer outside of it. And Kirk Cousins, he takes one day off completely. He doesn't touch the football facility, and he spends with his family. But then the other days he's there and he's locked in, and he brings over 2 or 3 chiropractors the week of the game, and they're helping get his body right. And that's a way to show the players this is what it looks like if you really want to make it to a higher level, and you're not really just giving them another sermon where they're like, there goes coach talking his talk again. So
all right, so here on the Rebound Rundown, we like to show the love, like to spread the love, and I know that you are a just massive consumer of basketball media. I know you listen to a lot of shows. I know that you're constantly listening to podcasts. You and I have talked a lot about that. What are some of your favorite shows to listen to, or people to read, or for any coaches that might be listening to this that want to expand what they consume?
Yeah, Slapping Glass does a great job online. They've got a free newsletter. They've got a free podcast. They've also got a paid subscription where they'll bring on a coach and they'll watch film of the last 5 minutes of a game and talk about whatever they're doing. That one is phenomenal. Zach Bovair, Pick and Pop, on Twitter. He's always he's sharing different news articles. He's sharing plays. He's constantly quoting different, what coaches are saying in different press conferences, coaching clinics, anything of that nature. He's an awesome follow. Learning Leader podcast, they just talk about leadership in general. It could be a basketball coach. It could be somebody higher up at Chick-fil-A and talking about their different values. So, it's just constantly trying to find new stuff to read and to go over. I mean, there's as much content out there, I think, as you're willing to find, across the board. Like some of your guys' episodes, when Sean Miller had Chris Mack on, we had Stan Van Gundy. I mean, those were excellent, right? I mean, if you're a basketball coach, you're going to listen to every former Xavier player talk about the Xavier days. Probably not. But I think that information is out there for the finding. And if you can find different mentors that can, Coach Mike Price at Oak Hills, unbelievable mentor for me. Met him when he used to come watch practice at Xavier, and I was fortunate enough to do workouts with his team at Oak Hills. That's when you can have somebody like that. Coach, what do you think? How do you use your days in the summer? For high school. What do you do when you're preparing for a team that has a player like this? I got to coach AAU with Brooke Cups last year. His son Gabe was at Indiana, going to Ohio State, and to learn just, he's a culture guru, and all the things he's doing with his players, with different meetings, things he does with his breakfast club, getting into the gym. He teaches leadership classes, writes books. That his book is a really, really good one. There's no limit on the things that you can find out there. I think you just gotta be willing to be aggressive, make phone calls, shoot texts, send emails. Some people will give you, no time at all, and other people will give you all the time in the world. And when you can find those people to talk to and invest in and talk basketball and life, those are some of the best investments you can make, I think, in terms of learning.
It was a beautiful day in Cincinnati. James looked out the window and saw Bud scoping out competition, where James saw none. James, in the spirit of Pella hospitality, invited him in. Bud hoped to find a flaw. Maybe it was in the finish, or the quality, or selection, but he found none. Get your full service, delivery, removal, and installation all included. Call Pella now.
What makes us human? Humanity is found in the actions that redefine care. Actions that we at TriHealth take every day. By seeing those who feel invisible, hearing needs that have been ignored. TriHealth is healing the body and the human spirit, so all can know and live a better life.
All right, Trey, last question for you. What can McNick fans expect from a play style standpoint under Trey Scotti?
Play style every year is going to be, who do we have, right? I mean, in terms of how fast are we going to play, pace of play, who are the players that we have, and how can we best put them in those positions? I think across the board, like we talked about at the beginning, we want guys with that Ohio football toughness. We want a couple football guys out there that can kind of be your enforcers, your defenders, your rebounders. We want to have more skill than anybody in the city of Cincinnati and the state of Ohio, and that comes from being in the gym as much as we possibly can, as the rules will allow. And then when we're in there, there's days to shoot on the gun and get spot shots, but like really taking the time to learn about what goes into the development, the small side of games, the ball handling, the footwork. So we want to be really, really skilled. And every single year we want to be a team that plays extremely hard and share the ball. Teams that, basketball is not all that complicated. You watch the best teams, they play hard, they share the ball. The teams that do that the best, okay, now it goes to talent. Right at this level, you can't always control maybe all the talent that walks through the door. But I think if we can, put a team out on the court that's fun to watch, that plays, for one another, word spreads all the time that we put in this gym and our main gym with the players and in the weight room. I think kids coming through the middle school ranks will see what we put out on the floor, and kids and families they'll want to be a part of this going forward. So couldn't be more excited.
Trey, it's been great to catch up with you, man.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you guys doing this.
Yeah, really
awesome.
Great. And best of luck to you as you get going here.
Thank
best
you.
Of luck.
Best of luck to you. And I know this is just a tip of the iceberg on all the work you've been putting in. And so I've got no doubt we'll be turning on national television here in a couple of years, and you'll be a regular mainstay there with guys like
the Rebound
Fanta.
Rundown will be on national television.
There's no question. There's no question.
That's right.
So.
Well, that is Trey Scotti. He is the new head boys basketball coach here at McNicholas High School. And he was today's guest on the Rebound Rundown. And make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, you go down and you hit that subscribe button, just trying to keep growing that subscriber count. And if you're listening to this in audio form, leave a rating and a review. That always helps out, and you subscribe as well. This has been the Rebound Rundown. Everybody will check in with you next time.